Hello, and welcome everybody to another episode of r/ProRevenge. My name's Ryan, the official host here at Reddit Voice, and I look forward to bringing you guys today's top stories. Before I do though, I'd just really appreciate it if you could leave a like and hit that subscribe button and notification bell to stay up to date on all the latest videos. Accidentally burned down my neighbor's fence and she tries to milk me for 10k. Judge humbles that ass up real quick. This sub has gotten me through a lot of boredom, and has provided me with hours of entertainment. I figure it's my turn to tell my revenge story. So it's been about 4 years since this happened. I was about 18 at the time, working for a security company. There were constant call-offs and no-shows, have no idea why, but being so young and naive, I was constantly working 16-hour shifts and not coming home until 8 a.m. Also, I lived with my father at the time. The time of frame was around the 4th of July. I finally had a day off and my best friend was back in town for vacation. We decided to get together and chip on some good old American fireworks. To be fair, I have had nothing but bad experiences with fireworks, so I had no idea how this would be any different. We got home with the fireworks and we laid them all out on the floor. Sparklers, bottle rockets, cakes, and Roman candles. I say, why don't we mess around with some sparklers, since it's still not dark yet? Great idea. We go into my backyard, where it hasn't rained in well over 2 months and is extremely dry. You see the problem here? One of the little sparkies from mine and my friend's sparklers made contact with the ground and made 2 small fires that quickly spread to a large area. I ran as fast as I could to grab the garden hose and quickly started spraying down the fire. It was no use. It was spreading faster than I could spray it. I handed my friend the hose and called 911. What felt like hours was only 4 minutes and the fire was spreading to the neighbor's fence. The neighbor came outside and they were fairly calm to grab their hose and spray down the fence, along with the dead grass in her yard. The fire department shows up and finally I tell my friend, only one of us needs to get in trouble. You should leave. He was reluctant to leave because he felt equally responsible, but I convinced him that I didn't want him to get in trouble and have to drop out of college. My neighbor was super chill about the entire situation at first. I told her that we could talk about replacing the fence and get some quotes to repair it. She was just super grateful that everyone was okay. About 2 hours after, the fire/arson investigator came to question me about the fire. I told him the truth. I said that I was in the backyard by myself playing with fireworks and accidentally lit the ground on fire, and I had gotten off that day without being hit by any charges and was commended for being honest. This is where it goes downhill very fast. About a week later, I get a knock on the door from a neighbor. I opened the door and she handed me 2 pieces of paper for me to look at. There was a quote for the fence valued at around $4,000 and an estimate for lawn care valued at around $6,000. These were really shady and just typed out on a Microsoft Word document. No logo or company name. She then adds, I will also be having you pay for my water bill for 3 months because the new yard will need lots of water. Now the fence this woman had before was raggedy and falling apart. Her yard? Dead grass, weeds, everywhere, never mowed it. Now, looking at this paper, she wants a mahogany fence and a brand new backyard with flowers and trimmed hedges. I said, I need to get an estimate myself, this doesn't feel right. She says, remember, you agreed to replace my fence, and a real man keeps his promises. I shut the door and called my dad to tell him about what just happened, and he flipped out and told me, son, you don't give that a single dime. He gives me the number to his handyman and tells me to take care of it. The next day, I had the guy come out for an estimate, and the neighbor ran outside flailing her arms.
I did not give you permission to get an estimate on my fence.
Technically, it separates the property line, so it's both of our fence. She calls the cops on me for having a contractor, and they ultimately can't do a single thing because I'm on my property. He quickly finishes the estimate off at $1,200. I also knew a guy who did lawn care from my time working at the grocery store. He estimated the lawn reseeding while she was away from the house would be about $800. After I get these estimates, I give copies to the woman and she's having none of it.
I don't know these people. I don't want them near my house. They're probably really shitty contractors.
I said, no, I know them personally and they're really nice people and do great work. She shut the door in my face and I went on my way. I ended up working a 16-hour shift that night and got home at 8 a.m., and this woman comes knocking on my door at 9 a.m. and demanded I speak to her. I explained I'd really love to do this, but I just got home and have to be back at work in less than 5 hours. I need to sleep. She goes,
"What kind of lazy asshat sleeps until 2 p.m.?
At this point, I had about lost it. I told her, you can either accept my $2,000 for my quotes or kiss my ass and get nothing. She stood there for a while with her mouth gaped open, but she accepted my offer and planned to meet down at the notary the next morning. I spent that night after I got off work writing a contract and gathering the $2,000 in cash. The next morning, I wake up and grab this contract to meet down at the notary. I was thrilled to finally be done with this broad and never speak to her again. I waited for over 3 hours and she didn't show up. I get a call from her saying,
"I'm sorry, the $2,000 isn't enough. I'm having my guys start work on this project, and you will be paying me full price."
Oh, really? After that, I didn't say a single word to her, and I watched for a few months as these guys turned her backyard into an oasis, complete with a small pond, brand new sod and flowers, the whole 9 yards. Come to find out, she had plans to remodel these things for a long time, and was just waiting for the opportunity to go through with it. Also, in this time, she used her remodel funds to go on a trip to Hawaii. You know how I found out about this? She was bragging about it on the neighborhood Facebook group, and didn't know I was in it. I have a different Facebook name than my real name. Are you ready for the revenge? Now, 4 months after the fire and all the remodels, I get served papers to go to court for $10,300. At 18 years old, I'm having to hire a lawyer to work my case. When we finally do get into court, I lay everything out. The quotes, being harassed multiple times, not showing up after agreeing to a deal, not wanting me to get my own quotes, required by the law, and her bragging about screwing me out of money, and I have proof of all of it. The judge looked at her and said, "Ma'am, with all due respect, you're out of your daggone mind." Not only did this young man tell the truth of what happened, he offered to pay you more than what he was supposed to. Your lawn was already dead before the fire occurred, so he's only responsible for the fence of $1,200. I will also deduct from this his lawyer fees, $800. So I burned this woman's fence down, and all I'm having to give her is $400. Cool. She took a huge financial loss from this. Not sure how much the Hawaii trip cost her, but she was in serious debt. Ended up having to sell the house because of it, and moved into a smaller house. Haven't heard anything from her since. TLDR, burned my neighbor's fence down, sees it as an opportunity to milk an 18-year-old to remodel her backyard and go on to a trip for Hawaii. Takes me to court and walks out $9,600 in debt. Edit, some grammar issues. Also, holy hell. I normally dislike people who put in edits, but holy hell, this is crazy about how this post blew up. I also wanted to clear a few things up. I'm not saying that I don't feel bad for burning down my neighbor's fence. I felt really bad about it and wished we could have handled it more civilly. I would have been more happy to meet in the middle or get multiple quotes, and to this day, I still don't use fireworks because we could have really hurt someone. What I've learned through this, though, is that it's best to take responsibility for your actions from the gate. The fire investigator had seen the leftover fireworks near the area of the fire and said he would have slapped cuffs on me and I'd be in jail for arson if I would have gave him any other answer. I was not criminally charged and the incident was deemed an accidental fire. Thank you to the people in the comments giving me information about how much a fence actually costs. I've never had to purchase a fence before, so I had just believed what the contractor had told me without a second thought. I will take some time after the edit to address some individual questions. To celebrate how successful this post is done, I've donated $150, $25 for each medal, to the Red Cross Home Fire Relief Fund. Screw over your employees? Don't be too shocked when your dirty laundry starts catching up to you. So I need to keep this somewhat vague to maintain anonymity, and I wasn't there for it all. This mostly happened to my friend, who was one of the employees screwed over, but I did what I could to help my friend get revenge. Friend of mine was employed as a barista for a coffee shop with a couple of locations. Well, the owner turned out to be a grade A scumbag. Started playing employees with bad checks, not giving them their tips if they were paid on a credit card. Obviously, he couldn't steal their cash tips, not that he didn't try. Things along those lines. He was, of course, stealing from the business to fund his own lavish lifestyle. My friend was pissed and quit shortly after the nonsense started, and of course the business shortly went under. But if that's all that happened, this wouldn't fit in ProRevenge. Now, my friend was out a few $1,000s. I'm not sure exactly how much, but enough that it was a serious hit to their budget, and they weren't the only one. This creep was the classic con man, writing checks to cover the bad checks, all the delay tactics you'll ever see. Oh, the bank must have messed up, just redeposit it. And of course, it comes back as a bad check a week or two later. Lots of shady stuff. But he was a good con man. All told, 8 people were getting screwed over to, I found out later, in excess of $20K. So one afternoon, my friend is telling me this story. He's sick and tired of being conned by this creep, as well as everyone else. And here is where the ProRevenge part begins to come into effect. I start digging into the business owner, all public record stuff, and some of it I leaned to my friend or their coworker, but started to learn a lot about this scumbag. He's got multiple felonies in his past. I'm all for giving people a second chance, but this guy wasn't that old, and had racked up easily half a dozen felonies. Why he wasn't still in jail is a topic for a much different forum. One of his convictions was for being a felon in possession of a firearm. He was currently on probation for the above conviction. This is where things start getting interesting. A little more light digging and I come up with the name of his probation officer. When I sat and talked to my friend about what I had found out about his prior employer, 2 cycles of bounced checks was enough. He happened to mention that he had seen firearms in his apartment. They'd hung out together socially before things went completely pear-shaped. He'd used his girlfriend to purchase firearms since she was a prohibited person. Straw purchase, yet another felony. So now things get really interesting. I put my friend in contact with Scumbag's probation officer. Turns out, when you're out on probation, there's a lot of things you're not allowed to do. One of them is commit more felonies. This is an automatic revocation of your probation and will land your happy little butt back in jail. And knowingly passing bad checks in our state for the amount he was writing them for is a felony in and of itself. 8 employees, 3 payroll cycles, before the business officially went belly up, 23 felony counts of passing a bad check, since my buddy bailed at 2 cycles, repeating offense of being a felon in possession of a firearm. And if that's not bad enough, when his probation officer came and knocking to check these allegations, he also found drug paraphernalia and drugs sufficient enough to get him for possession of controlled substances with intent to distribute. Multiple different drugs, so multiple different counts of that too. For those keeping score at home, if he was convicted of all of these counts, he would be looking at roughly an additional 30 felonies, easily enough to keep him in jail for a very long time. Now if this were petty revenge, that's where things would have stopped. But no. You see, the state has this fund that all employees pay a tax into. It's a fund for those situations where the company goes out of business, writes bad checks for their employees, etc. And it's administered by the state labor board, so they pay out to cover costs of lost wages, but not lost tips, of the employers. But the state is not benevolent in this, oh no. You see, in order to attempt to recoup their losses, they can seize company assets. And in the case of a poorly set up company with no separation of assets between the company and the owner, they can also seize personal assets. Oh yes, that shiny new company truck. The one you're towing your shiny new boat with? Guess what, scumbag? They now belong to the state. Your bank accounts? Yeah, those belong to the state too. Now surely you must be thinking, this is now ProRevenge, right? Oh no. You see, this scumbag messed with my friend, and I don't take kindly to that kind of nonsense. You see, my friend learned throughout this process that on top of all of this, his former employer was committing tax fraud and evasion. As far as the employees were concerned, they were all straight-up W-4 employees, meaning he was withholding the correct taxes, payroll taxes, Medicare taxes, etc. Except he was reporting to the IRS that all of his employees were independent contractors, and wasn't actually withholding any taxes at all. Taxes for the company? He was fudging those so badly that they should have been sold as brownies. Unfortunately for Scumbag, a friend of a friend happened to work for the local IRS office, and after sitting with him over drinks one evening, found out that the IRS has a tip line for reporting tax evasion. And depending on how it's reported, well, turns out that person reporting the tax evasion may actually get a small percentage as a reward for turning in the tax cheat. So, on top of facing 30 some odd felony charges, on top of having all his personal and company assets seized, Scumbag now has the IRS chasing after him. That, dear readers, is ProRevenge. Edit. Holy crap, my first silver, gold, and platinum. Thank you, generous Redditors. I will definitely update this as more developments come in. I can say that because this scumbag is such a scumbag, he's currently sitting in jail awaiting a trial for domestic assault on his girlfriend. My friend and his co-workers have been interviewed by local police and the probation officer, as well as the IRS and the ATF for the straw purchases of the firearm through his girlfriend. My understanding is that she made a deal with the ATF to avoid charges for the straw purchases in exchange for her testimony against him. The DA and probation officer are waiting for him to be sentenced on the domestic violence charges before they go after him with all the other stuff. That way, he has to serve the sentences consecutively. As far as the federal charges, who knows when those will be filed, but my understanding is that no matter when he's charged, he'll have to pay to serve the federal time as his state prison time, and won't get any credit for served time in the state pen. Edit 2. Surprise, surprise. Scumbag, while out on bail for his domestic violence charges, our county is stupidly lenient on letting people out with ridiculously low bail, decided he didn't need to show up for his arraignment. So he has a failure to appear warrant on him now, plus whatever other charges he's still facing. We now know he's in our local area still, as he's been seen by acquaintances of my friend. They've all been told that if they see them, they're supposed to call 911. And with that, my friends, we've reached the end of today's video. If you liked it, be sure to leave a like and also subscribe so you can stay up to date with all the latest. My name's Ryan, the official host here at Reddit Voice, and as always, I look forward to seeing you guys in the next video.